Hello, everyone, and welcome to your second week of technical writing. I just wanted to start by thanking you for your contributions on the Canvas page over the last week. Everything looks really good on those discussion posts. Make sure when you're responding to your colleagues, you get a little bit more in depth with what you see in the writing and why you think it makes for good technical writing. I really like that everyone was positive and supportive, but when you say that someone's rewrite looks good or someone's writing sounds like it flows really well, just make sure to go ahead and do kind of the next level of analysis and tell tell your classmate why you think it sounds better or why it flows together better. This is kind of the just like the college level analysis I just like to see on the Canvas page, and that I'm sure your classmates and I will appreciate reading just a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to get into today's lecture. We're going to reflect a little bit on week one, and we're going to talk a little bit about what makes for really good, really effective technical communication. And what I want to do is share this screen. I'm not going to go into presentation mode because I'm going to bring in a bunch of examples from my other screen over here too, because really the best way to learn some of this stuff is really through example and then through practice, which as far as practice goes, we'll make sure we'll get a lot of practice in over the next 3 weeks just using these skills. And what I'm going to cover here are more strategies, but these strategies go hand in hand with the techniques I talked about last week. Really for the rest of the course, as long as you combine these strategies with the techniques from last class, you'll kind of be doing this correctly. One thing I saw come up over and over again on the Canvas was that everyone learned that technical writing is this bigger thing just beyond reports and memos, but yeah, scientific reports and big memos still make up a big part of technical writing, and they might be the kinds of things you're going to do in your career. But as we practice in this course, even though things are going to be smaller, it's always going to be the same strategies and techniques. But the practice we'll do will give you a good foundation and all of that without asking you to do the big kind of scientific or research project we might do in the longer course format. It's doing something like that is just something we're not going to be able to fit in 5 weeks. But I can definitely give you a ton of smaller pieces of practice that once again once you get to your career, like I said, the strategies and what you do is basically the same. It just becomes on maybe a larger scale than you'll see in our 5 week session. But yeah, some lessons learned and reflecting on week one. There you go. Here are the new strategies I wanted to introduce to you. These come from another textbook. If we were gonna use that full textbook though, we'd have to pay for it. So I'm just gonna pick out a couple of things here from the Lannan and Gurak textbook, which again I'll give you a full kind of citation guide for everything I'm using in the course online. But yeah, they say that efficient technical communication combines worthwhile content, sensible organization, a readable style, effective visuals, effective page designs, and some of the time supplements, which can be available in various forms. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to go into each one, but what I really, like I said, what I really want to do is just show you examples because that's really the best way to do it. So worthwhile content was the first one. They write that worthwhile content means that your technical writing includes all and only the information readers need. So I pulled a website here, The Virtual Instructor. I've tried and failed many times to learn how to draw, but I really like this web page they have because I think it demonstrates a really good example of using worthwhile content. So this is their how to draw a face page. And if you read up front, you learn a little bit about the lesson, exactly what it'll do and the approach. There's a little bit here to kind of cheer you on, right? People make mistakes, but we're not, we're going to learn how to overcome them. And this is the kind of simple approach. And then they get right into step one. So I call that to your attention because maybe you've been online and you've seen recipes for food where they want to give you a long story about where this recipe came from, where, they want to tell you in the history of the world where this food came from, and it goes on and on before you finally get to the stuff you want. But this is a really good example here of worthwhile content, right? Just gives me a little bit of information and then goes right into each step. And then, like we talked about last week, each step has a nice heading. All of them have a nice visual. Here we get some technical language, right? We learn what the hairline is, we learn what the brow line is and the nose line through just really simple, effective visuals, right? They didn't have to write out the definition for each. They just point out each thing. So this is one I just wanted to show you that I think has really worthwhile content, and you can browse it some more, but I'll put it up on the lecture when I upload it. The other thing that comes from that textbook is they said one of the things we have to combine is sensible organization. We'll go back over to the browser. I'm not going to play this video for you, but this one says it's the secret to writing compelling plot twists. So already we know we have a how-to guide. And what I wanted to show you about this one was just like the nice organization they built into the video, right? If I'm an experienced screenwriter and I just need a refresher, I know maybe I can go all the way over here to Technique 2 and maybe just watch this section on breadcrumbs, it says there. This was just like another one I wanted to show you because I have been emphasizing that technical writing is kind of multimedia. It's not just not just boring black text on a white page, but can be used across all different media. So here's a video that used some of those techniques I talked about, right? Like a really strong heading, technique 3, story structure. It gives me visuals throughout and also kind of teaches me a how-to lesson. So kind of another cool example. Again, this will all be online so you can check it out. But yeah, they say a sensible organization guides the reader and emphasizes important material. And so if I went on there just to find out about breadcrumbs or just about story structure, I can get, I get guided right to it right away if I scroll along, and it emphasizes, what are those biggest pieces in each chunk. So another really good example. And again, I'll keep asking you to practice with headings and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to practice that strategy a lot. Readable style, I put a question mark next to here because, when we go out and find technical writing in our everyday lives, like in our first assignment, sometimes we discover that not everybody follows this. But the textbook says that a readable style promotes fluid reading and accurate understanding. These are some examples from a previous course, but here are some from our course. I believe these come from Michael and Benjamin. But here on the left, we have, I think, what I would call like a less readable style, right? Like it's definitely a piece of technical writing. It uses bulleted lists. I have my strong headings. So yeah, it's definitely technical writing, and this actually does deal with, scientific detail, like your liver, your allergies, things like that. But yeah, where's that readable style, right? We don't really see that in this piece of technical writing. Even we have something up in red up here, read all of this, and then it switches to black. Does that mean this is less important? I can't really find a reason for it. And then, I guess it's 2 medicines in 1 package. But the contrast here, it's kind of hard to even see those letters. I'm a little bit colorblind, so maybe it's worse for me, but that'd be a good example of like not really leaning into that readability. And then that gets, back to what I said at the beginning, right? Like this is a bulleted list, but it's not your typical, hierarchically structured top to bottom kind of list. And then this has little paragraphs, list, small paragraph, list, and that, gets very small and harder to read. So some of the readable style stuff, you'll see really bad practices out there in the world. But again, I'll give you a lot of practice in this course to figure out how you want to do it. Now, when it comes to, to give you a little insight on some of the problems that technical writers deal with, one of them is probably that all this stuff is probably legally required to be there. So you have to decide how you're going to use your space because you don't always want to go to a bigger package, especially because that might have, an environmental impact. You're using more cardboard, more packaging. And so these are kind of some of the problems that you'll start to see in technical writing is maybe there are better ways to write this out, but with the space they had, this is what they went with. Now, do I agree with the contrast and, what makes things more important here? Color-wise, no, but again, some of those you run up against some of those realities in tech writing. Like I just don't have the space, so I'm going to do the best I can. Here's the other example. I thought this was a little bit better, which is kind of interesting, I guess, right? Our mac and cheese is better, more readable than our medicine, but like I said, maybe there's more legal stuff going on over here that I'm not fully aware of. But yeah, we have a nice strong heading, directions. We have a text box here that tells us, hey, this is a little different from the directions. This is kind of the what you'll need list. And then it goes right into a numbered list of what to do. We see a little bit of contrast, cook, add, cover. Maybe if I've done it a couple times, I only need to see the first word. Effective visuals. Yeah, so this one's a little bit more readable. You have white text on, more of like a yellow background. So that makes it stand out. White text on a red background, that stands out. So that's a really good use of contrast as opposed to this line here where it doesn't really pop out, right? Um, so yeah, after that, they tell us that effective visuals are part of good technical writing. Zoom back out for you. I believe this was Elena who found us this one for an EpiPen. And yeah, this one uses really effective visuals, right? Where to inject, it might have been shorter to write, inject in upper thigh, but instead they give us a nice visual of it and how to give. Again, maybe without any visuals, you could follow along. But each step of the way had just really nice visuals, even including how to hold the device. So yeah, that's a really good example. You'll see sometimes visuals get a little out of hand, and there's too many of them. But here's a nice, really concise one. So part of the message here is that you can start to think about your visuals the way you think about a sentence, right? In some of the rewrites I saw for the syllabi, people shorten some of the sentences to make it a little bit more concise to read. And you can think about visuals the same way, right? They should be concise. They should be direct to the point. There shouldn't be a ton of extra kind of noise, especially because if I'm taking this out, it's probably in an emergency situation. Effective page design. Sorry, I zoomed in once and now I think we're permanently zoomed in. But yeah, you've maybe already heard me talk about this, but provides heads, lists, type styles, white space, and other aids to navigation. I've already talked about your headings, your lists. We won't go too deep into type styles, but you've seen the ones on Microsoft Word for sure that have like too many frills and kind of distract from reading. In tech writing, you always want to favor the simple one. So I can upload some more information on fonts if you're interested, but we don't have to go too deeply down that road if no one wants. And then white space is one. You've noticed in this presentation, perhaps there's too much blank space. But sometimes that's best in a design because like I said, you don't want to overwhelm somebody. So even like here where it says get emergency medical help after the injection, right? It doesn't fill up the entire space. It tells me, hey, like this is the one big important thing, and leaves, some blank space so it's not overcrowding the design. I have a good example here. This is like for learning a coding language and some of the statements that they need. So this was really good, right? Gives us heads, gives us a visual of what it looks like when we're writing the code, gives us lists, and there's a good amount of white space on this side of the page, a good amount of white space between things. So even though it is like very technical information, it's not overwhelming to look at. And yeah, some other things I just wanted to point out here. When you get into more complex designs like a web page, we're not going to do that in our course just because it's so short. But it's another exercise you could see in technical writing classes. But just a good thing to point out is how they made the headings into links too, so it's even more kind of readable for somebody who wants to go and find really quick information. In this article, the return statement brings me right down to it. Here's another example of contrast, right? They made the statement actually pop out, kind of looking like it's in the code. So this is just a really effective page design, I thought. And maybe you've been on websites where, again, there's too much going on. Maybe there's headings, but you can't click them and go right to things. So just a really cool one to look at and stuff to keep in mind as far as how you guide your reader. You can always have links in PDFs also. It looks like we have a new thing here with using AI to learn, but I think I'd have to sign in to show you all of that. But again, those are the kinds of things we look for in effective page design. Maybe you already knew these things already. Supplement availability. This is an example from an old course where there was a subway map, but you could use a QR code and bring it up on your phone. You saw this in Elena's example here that you could scan to learn more. I brought up another example is that this Velveeta one maybe is a mischance. I brought up their webpage to see if there was more information. And it looks like there's a bunch of different mac and cheese recipes, right? So if I was the technical writer on this project, maybe I include a QR code that says, hey, check out, other recipes or something like that there. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's the full range of what they talk about. They say these are the big ingredients. If you can kind of do that every time in your tech writing practice, that you'll pretty much it'll appear efficient every time. And so those are the ones I want you to work with throughout the rest of the course, in addition to the other techniques I told you about. I wanted to give you a note on contrast. You heard me talk a lot about it throughout last week and throughout this week so far too. But there are effective and ineffective ways of making things stand out. This one I bring up, it's a little bit interesting to me because the thing that's bolded is always the first word of the sentence, which to me, I don't know that that's really effective because of course I read the first phrase. It's maybe things throughout that could be bolded that could speed up my reading a little bit better, rather than just doing the first line. Actually, now that I think about it, if you ever ask ChatGPT for a list, it always does that too, right? And it's not even like I said, it doesn't even feel very effective. Like, why would I need my eyes on the first line every time? Maybe give me something throughout. So here, I'll give you a good example of some of those. These came from our students in this course too, some of your classmates. So here was the arena ari.na about page. This is a really good use of contrast. You see here that they bold the heading, which looks nice, and then they kind of draw your attention to how long they've been a part of the community and what they're doing. So you can kind of go right to that. Okay, I know it's 13 years and 310 days old. If you look here, the contrast is kind of the opposite. They softened the other text if you don't get something. So these are not bolded, but the ones that are, that do appear fully, are things that I get. So I can quickly scan through these and see in the list what each thing implies. And then again, once you get into these headings, right, contact us is bolded. The members of the team, their names are bolded. The business model, crowdfunded. So if I'm just scanning through this and I see the bold words, I already get a good kind of clear picture of who is involved, how long they've been involved, what I have to pay for, and things like that. So I think that's a more effective use of contrast than just going through and saying, I'll bold the first line, I'll bold the first line, I'll bold the first line. So that's a note for everyone. Here's a legal one. And again, there's probably legal standards at play here. But these two paragraphs use contrast to me in the sense that they're all capitalized, right? But this is kind of the opposite of that first line thing. This is where the whole paragraph is capitalized, and my eyes don't even really want to look at it. It just looks like a wall of text. I don't know if you've ever gotten a text message that looks like this, but immediately your eyes think like, I'm not going to read all of that. And that's what happens here. Now, again, there might be legal requirements in the background that say this has to be all caps. But again, it just doesn't look very nice to me. So let's go back over to the presentation. I think some of the most effective ways to create contrast are using bolding, using it throughout the text instead of just the beginning, using italics or using colored fonts like we saw on Velveeta, or even the Tylenol, even though that wasn't the best contrast because you couldn't see it sometimes. Ineffective, the all caps. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you use like one word like not, that looks okay in all caps, but the full paragraph, that was a little tough to look at. Underlining is kind of outdated. You don't really see people underline in technical manuals or instructions anymore. I think the reason why is you can just do so much more with a computer now. When you think about a typewriter, maybe underlining was kind of the best you could do. But now we have so many things, right? We can color the fonts, we can make them italic, we can make them bold. So underlining just seems to kind of go on the wayside. And then closely colored fonts, like I showed you on this one, right? Like these are a little too closely colored for me to say that's really effective contrast. So last thing I wanted to give you a quick note on, and then we'll call it a lecture here. I know I'm going a little bit long in this one, but this is some of the important stuff, so that's okay. Um, Using grids in interface designs, it could also say document designs, but yeah, these are the kinds of things you see online. So if we go back to Velveeta, we see this modular design online that these kind of attract our eye, right? So I have my straight boxes right across. It makes it a little more attractive to read. I know exactly sort of what I'm going to and from. Um, if we go back, the column design, you see that in newspapers, but I know I'm very small right now, but I picked this up from the gym. It's like a diet plan, but you can see this is arranged in columns, which is just kind of straight down the way this is. And then hierarchical content organized by importance. I guess sometimes you see that here, where we have these organized in layers of importance. We have kind of, one column over here, one column over here, but a big one down the middle. And that tells you, hey, that big one is kind of the most important stuff down the middle. And that's really where you want to spend your time scrolling. So I'll remind you to use kind of some kind of grid layout. Again, there's different kinds and different ways to do it. And I'll upload this link for you to kind of explore more. But yeah, these are kind of those effective strategies behind efficient technical writing that yeah, I'll just look for in the rest of your assignments. What I want you to do is just practice. And like I said, I'm grading most things on completion. So at least demonstrate that you understand these strategies and you understand the techniques. But I'm not going to grade you heavily on like, hey, you used the wrong grid layout or anything like that. I just want you to get a good amount of practice in to see what these kinds of technical writing and really technical design look like. And so that'll be kind of the basis for our assignments the rest of this week. I'll have two more lectures for you, but thanks for listening to this one. And yeah, thanks for all your work. Bye, guys.